highest stakes for Ukraine as world leaders meet at the UN General Assembly to discuss the path forward for helping the war-torn country. The message and the plea from Presidents Biden and Zelensky to stick by Ukraine's side, no matter how long it takes. And a breakthrough for allergy sufferers. The new nasal spray on the verge of approval that promises to change the way that we stop life-threatening allergic reactions. Then, in the original, tranq, the dangerous drug that is finding its way into the hands of addicts across this country, how businesses and activists are dealing with the crisis overtaking one American neighborhood. In our backstory, the food and beverage industry's efforts to get you hooked on processed foods. We're going to talk to the reporter exposing who's behind the push, from big tobacco to online influencers. And then olive oil. It's getting hugely more expensive. We're going to tell you why and how it's enticing daring heists of the so-called liquid gold later on in the show. Hey, everybody, I'm Yasmin. I'm in for Hallie tonight. We start with the UN General Assembly here in New York, with Presidents Biden and Zelensky making urgent pleas to stay the course in supporting Ukraine's war efforts. Both men speaking earlier today with a clear message as leaders at home and abroad are starting to get tired of pouring money into the fight against Russia.
Russia believes that the world will grow weary if we abandon the core principles of the United States to appease an aggressor. Can any member state in this body feel confident that they are protected?
We must act united to defeat the aggressor and focus all our capabilities and energy on addressing these challenges.
So the United States has already spent, get this, $43 billion on the battlefield, even as Ukraine's crucial counteroffensive. It's struggling to really make some serious gains there. The president's speech was the real centerpiece of a week of meetings with world leaders, with Ukraine, climate change, a push for countries to work together at the top of this agenda. But the calls at the UN are coming as House Republicans in Washington are hinting they're going to leave out any additional money for Ukraine in their short-term funding bill to keep this government running. Speaker McCarthy unveiling a bill on Sunday containing spending cuts, conservative border policies. No mention, though, of any money for Ukraine or disaster relief, for that matter, as well. I want to bring in NBC's Mike Memley, who's been following all this for us here in New York. Memley, as always, it's great to see you, especially in person here. Strong words there, right, from President Biden and Zelensky. Kind of the plea, the call for more funding when it comes to Ukraine. Who knows how long this war is going to last? Putin does not seem to be backing down. The question is, will it get what they want, which is long-term support? So far from Washington, it's looking like no.
That's right. And it was interesting. I was talking to a senior administration official last night who talked about the way today was being choreographed.
Yeah.
And originally, the president's speech was going to lead with Ukraine. We saw this in his speech to the General Assembly last year. It was a major focus, the biggest chunk of his speech about Ukraine. Today, from the president, important, strong words, but it was towards the end, less of the speech. Why is that? Because Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was also there today, was going to be speaking directly in person. He hadn't done that before. Also going to be speaking tomorrow to the Security Council. So why is this important? There's a tag team approach here, and the White House sees Zelensky as the most effective messenger for it. But they're dealing with the reality here, which is that this was supposed to be a year of progress, a year of action for Ukraine. They needed to see significant progress on the battlefield to sustain support back home for this in all the countries. It's not just the U.S. where there are elections next year. Some of our other key allies are seeing elections next year, and the domestic populations are turning against it. So we haven't quite seen the progress in terms of that counteroffensive that we wanted to see. And so that's why these speeches are so important, and that's why it's going to be so important what Zelensky is able to do when he gets to Washington later this week.
Okay, I want to talk about Washington for a moment, not just from Zelensky's perspective, from Biden's perspective as well, because you're looking at a full plate for President Biden, right? He's looking at a 2024 re-election campaign. That aside, and that's already a lot, right? He's got this impeachment inquiry launched by the Republican Party, announced by McCarthy, Speaker McCarthy. They got a hearing next week, I believe. 9 days left in a possible government shutdown. A lot to get done there, and it's looking more and more like they can't get it done. How much actual leverage right now does the president have in Washington, especially when it comes to getting funding for Ukraine?
Well, this is a real test for a president who has said he can work with Republicans, he can work with the other party to get things done. Yeah. This is the first test of a divided Congress for President Biden in asking for funding for Ukraine. He's been able to get significant amounts of money from a Democratic Congress. They passed enough in the last CR last year to get them to this point, but now that money is running out. We remember Speaker McCarthy early in his speakership saying no more blank checks for Ukraine. And so when you look at public opinion here in the U.S. alone, we went from over 60% of Americans saying that they support doing more for Ukraine to now less than half. Listen, now some Republicans still support Ukraine, but not all of them. And I want you to listen to some of what we've been hearing from Republicans on Capitol Hill.
It's going to be, hand out more requests for money, and my position on that's clear. My mind on that is made up.
I have questions for him. Where's the accountability on the money we already spent? What is the plan for victory? I think that's what the American public wants to know.
And so we're going to see Zelensky at the White House first on Thursday, then up to Capitol Hill, also to the Pentagon, an important series of meetings there.
I want to look to tomorrow, a really big meeting for the president tomorrow with Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, who has been certainly under the microscope over the last couple of months, wanting this kind of judicial overhaul domestically for him. Major protests, obviously, on the ground in Israel with regards to that. The president being pretty outspoken in being against this judicial overhaul. How is the White House framing this meeting? What are they looking to achieve when it comes to their relationship?
Well, President Biden always likes to say all politics is personal, including foreign policy. And now he and Prime Minister Netanyahu, they go back decades. They have a long-time relationship. But the policy areas are some of the most complicated parts of the relationship right now. We saw how close Prime Minister Netanyahu was to the former president. We saw the Iran nuclear deal, the ways in which Netanyahu, when Biden was vice president, was really at odds with the Obama administration. President Biden wants to see some new version of an Iran nuclear deal that he's going to be standing in the way of that. There's a reason President Biden has stiff-armed Netanyahu since he came back into office because of some of these conflicts. So we're going to be looking as much at the body language between these two men, the sort of nature of their discussions publicly, as well as what comes out of it privately as well.
We're going to have to get People Magazine's body language expert hired for tomorrow's meeting. Mike Memoli for us. Thank you, Mike. Good to see you. All right, so right now the military is investigating how that missing F-35 fighter jet basically disappeared for 24 hours, right? Before this wreckage and debris was discovered in South Carolina, it was this pretty bizarre saga that is getting a lot of attention, and it's also raising a lot of safety questions because we still don't know what actually went wrong here in this mishap that led to the pilot to eject from this F-35. How the military also lost such a high-tech and expensive jet, and then why that technology that they have to find it seemed to fail. The White House is committing today to find those answers. Here's John Kirby with Andrea Mitchell.
How does the U.S. military lose a $100 million plane?
That will be something that they will investigate. And as the Defense Department always does, they'll be transparent about it when they find the answers.
All right, want to bring in Sam Brock to talk more about this. So the big questions here, I just mentioned some of them, right? How this actually happened, why it took so long to actually find this jet, and really how close we are to getting any of those answers, Sam.
If anything, Yasmin, we have more questions now than we did 24 hours ago. No doubt, the idea that a military aircraft, one of the most sophisticated, if not the most, in the armed services, that cost $75 to $100 million, would somehow just be lost and not tracked is question number one. Number two, as you aligned there a second ago, the pilot ejecting. Why did he eject in the first place, especially since he was on a mission with a second pilot who made it in safely? But third now, you can add this to the list. I'm out here talking to neighbors, and they're describing the fact that at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, just after on Sunday, they heard something. In some cases, their homes were physically shaking. One woman said a picture frame fell off the wall and hit her in the head. And they all went outside to look at what's going on around here. And they didn't see anything, and they didn't report it, right? So 24 hours went by after people had actually experienced the effects of a fighter jet crashing in their backyard, and some of that information apparently did not get conveyed. So there's that. Also, this is a very sparse area, and it's important to stress that because of where this jet could have landed. It's not a population center. I'm in Indiantown right now in Williamsburg County. Population officially about 1,000. The people here say it's likely less than that. It's a bunch of woods and fields over my shoulder with a few homes back there. So while we're not exactly getting great eyes on what's going on the ground, we do have new aerials tonight of crews that are out there going through the debris. The Marine Corps is leading this investigation. They have provided zero information in terms of these key questions. Also, very little about what they're actually doing on the ground. We did, however, Yasmin, speak to an eyewitness, a couple actually, Adrian and Stephen. They are living out here for their families for generations, and they had been about a couple of miles away from the crash site, saw actually the plane coming down more slowly than you might expect. Here's what they told me about their observations.
It's so low, and it was kind of probably 100 feet above the treetops, and almost going inverted.
The jet itself was inverted.
It was like this when it went over the treetops, and when we heard the boom thud afterwards, we were thinking it couldn't be a sonic boom, and we were thinking it was rolling thunder in the distance.
Jasmine, they see military exercises here all the time, so they did not think anything of it. But when Stephen did call at 4 o'clock on Monday, by 6 o'clock, the Marine Corps had confirmed the debris field.
I tell you, the Marine Corps is lucky that aircraft did not land on a house, considering some of what we're hearing, right? They're grounding amidst all this, all their aircraft for at least one more day to avoid this in the future. The thing is, this is not the only mishap that we have seen recently. So how is this kind of 2-day pause on their aircraft being up in the air, how is that going to accomplish anything?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and it's my understanding anytime there is any sort of significant crash, and certainly this would qualify, there is a 2-day stand down. But on top of that, the backstory, Yasmin, and the fact that the military, and specifically the Marine Corps, have been involved in multiple exercises within the last month where people died, one in San Diego where 1 Marine died, and then another in Australia where 3 died and another was injured, does give you a fuller picture of why it would be time to reassess some of these standards and protocols and perhaps make some changes. I don't know, but it's certainly concerning to hear. And as you just said a second ago, the reality is if this jet had landed 2 miles in a different direction, it might not have been a grass field. It could have been someone's house. And then we'd be having a very different conversation today.
Sam Brock for us. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. All right, 5 Americans freed from detention in Iran back on American soil tonight, arriving near D.C. after flying halfway around the world, met with an emotional reunion with friends, family, and supporters on the tarmac.
3, 2, 3, freedom!
I just can't believe it. It's too long. 5.5 years.
The Americans' trip home saw them fly from Tehran to Qatar. American officials saying the Qataris played a key role in securing the prisoners' freedom before boarding another plane back to the U.S. American officials are making it clear this does not symbolize a lowering of tensions between Iran and the United States. With President Biden, Iranian leader President Raisi in New York for the UN General Assembly this week. Not expected, though, to meet face-to-face. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is in Virginia for us, where the freed prisoners arrived earlier this morning. Gabe, as always, my friend, great to talk to you. Give us first what is next for these freed Americans now that they're back on American soil.
Oh, hi there, Yasmin. Well, those Americans are undergoing mental and physical evaluations right now, and they're going to be getting a lot of help from the military, obviously after undergoing years of significant trauma. And they will be helped by counselors and really trying to get them back into their daily lives as some sort of normalcy. Easier said than done at this point. We understand from administration officials that physically they're doing okay, but it's that psychological trauma. Now, I can tell you, Yasmin, I spoke with a source close to the family of one of those prisoners, said not only was it an emotional reunion, it was an emotional plane flight, that the group had a lamb and wine, and it never tasted so good after so many years in captivity. And you saw the images, you're watching them, of that emotional reunion on the tarmac here at this Army base. Let's take a listen at what one of the prisoners had to say.
The nightmare is finally over. I've dreamt about this moment, and each time I've woken up and just been in disbelief, like, why am I dreaming these dreams and not happening? And today and tonight it happened. We're grateful for this moment, really, and we're gonna start building our lives again.
Again, family members are so happy to have those prisoners back after years of tense negotiations. Yes.
Yeah. So I mentioned how this plays into kind of the relationship between the United States and Iran. Secretary Blinken saying yesterday that this deal, it doesn't speak to anything else in this relationship. When you think about, the domestic turmoil inside Iran, the sanctions recently leveled against Iran as well, what is next for these two countries?
Well, Well, Yasmin, don't expect a sea change here. The Biden administration is very quick to point out that while they're not closing the door on diplomacy at this point, there are no plans to directly engage with Iran, no direct talks scheduled. And this is because the Iranian government, the Biden administration says, continues to wrongfully detain Americans, and they have no indication that it plans to stop doing that. Actually, the Biden administration announced new sanctions yesterday on Iran's Ministry of Intelligence, as well as former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, for the disappearance back in 2007 of a former FBI agent who is presumed dead. He's presumed to have died in Iranian custody, although the Iranian government has never acknowledged his arrest. That American's family is still demanding answers, and so is the Biden administration at this point. So, Yasmin, there's that. There's those implications. There's also a controversy here in the United States about whether this was a good deal, whether that $6 billion in unlocked funds should have been unfrozen for the Iranian government. Republicans arguing that it amounted to a ransom payment and could encourage more bad behavior in the future by Iran. But certainly the Biden administration pushing back on that, saying that the payments will be, that the humanitarian aid will be monitored here, that the transactions will be monitored. But the question remains, will this thaw relations with Iran in the near or long term? At this point, it doesn't believe to be the case. Yes.
Gabe Gutierrez for us. Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate it. All right, millions of Americans who suffer life-threatening allergies could soon be able to use a nasal spray to treat severe allergic reactions because the FDA is preparing to approve a product called Neffy. It is a needle-free alternative to an EpiPen, this self-injectable device that contains epinephrine, a drug that stops life-threatening allergic reactions, anaphylactic, to be specific to things like food, medications, or insect stings. Advocates are saying the new nasal spray, it's easy to use and it's easier and more accessible for people that fear injections or have a hard time giving themselves a shot from this EpiPen. I want to bring in Dr. Akshay Sayal to talk more about this. Talk to me first about how exactly Neffy works.
So you know, like you mentioned, we have EpiPens, Yasmin. So you have, a lot of people see this in popular culture where you sort of stab yourself if you're having an allergic reaction and you get better. What they did was they took that concept of the EpiPen and they took what we commonly see of allergy medicines like Flonase or even Narcan, this little nasal device you spray right here, and they kind of merged the two together because what we're finding is that a lot of people are afraid of needles, right? I had colleagues in med school who were afraid of needles. They would pass out at the sight of blood or needles.
That's not great for a doctor.
Yeah, unfortunately they got over it, but
maybe psychiatry. Sorry, please go ahead.
It's easy to use. It can reverse those symptoms. It works just as well as the EpiPen version. So when the FDA is meeting today to decide whether or not to approve this, a lot of people are anxiously looking forward to it, especially those who are afraid of the needles.
So tell me, though, how it works. I mean, are you just doing one spray into each nostril if, in fact, you're having an anaphylactic reaction because of your allergies? How exactly does it work?
Yeah, you spray it into your nostril if you suspect an allergic reaction. And to go over those signs, it could be your throat closing. You could have a weak heart rate or a fast heart rate. You could feel nauseous. You could even pass out. You could actually faint if you're having a severe allergic reaction. So if you see any of those, you would grab this little nasal device, almost looks like a Flonase, and you would spray it in, and it would fix it.
Who is the best type of candidate for this? Who does this benefit the most?
So they're looking at people over 30 kilos or 66 pounds when looking at whether or not to approve this. But who is this best for? Really anyone who's afraid of needles. It's a lot easier to carry. You can carry it in a purse, in a pocket, compared to an EpiPen, which is a little bit bigger. But really any people who are maybe deathly allergic to peanuts or shellfish and who are always kind of walking around in fear that they could become exposed, this is something that's really easy for them to carry in their bag.
So for now, probably not for kids because of who they're looking at.
Because of the weight requirements,
Exactly. All right, Dr. Akshay Sayal, thank you so much.
Anytime.
Appreciate it. All right, so we're hearing tonight from a high school band director who was tased by police officers who wanted him to stop the music after a football game in Alabama.
I'm having a hard time sleeping. It's just one of those experiences that you, as an educator or as a person, that you never think that you would be involved with.
So we are about to show you video of the altercation, and we have to warn you, you may find it disturbing. The text on the screen was added by the Birmingham Police Department. So police are saying the band director, Johnny Mims, refused to stop his band from playing after the game ended on Thursday. The police officers approached Mims, trying to handcuff and arrest him. Mims has been charged with disorderly conduct, harassment, and resisting arrest. His lawyer says police used excessive force and wrongfully arrested him. I want to bring in Blaine Alexander to help kind of clear things up and figure out what's going on here. I know that you spoke to Johnny Mims. Walk us through what happened here and what he is saying tonight.
So, Yasmin, all of this started after the game was over. It's kind of what's typically known as the fifth quarter, as some people have told me, basically where the bands kind of keep playing a few songs back and forth as people leave the stadium. Director Mims told me that this is a very typical thing that they typically see after their games. So he'd been in conversation with the other band director, he says, and they were wrapping up their kind of back and forth kind of battle, if you will. Now, according to police, they say that they tried to ask both band directors to stop their students from playing, saying that they were trying to quickly get everybody out of the stadium. They say that the other band director complied, but said that Johnny Mims did not. That's when things escalated. Now, when you saw that kind of video, one thing that Mims told me kind of added to the chaos in all of this is that the stadium lights went out. So at some point they were in the dark, and he was confused as to what was going on. Here's a little bit of what he told me. Take a look.
I do remember asking officers, like, why you grabbing me? You know, what did I do? And before I know it, I did see the officer tase me. I went down, and after that point, I was tased additional 2 more times by the same officer and a different officer.
So the video shows what happened, but both of them have very different stories as to exactly how it got to that point. Police say that he wasn't complying, that he wouldn't put his hands behind his back. But Director Mims says that he told them that they were getting ready to stop and that it just escalated out of control. Yasmin.
It's really perplexing as to how something like this leads to a tasing of a high school band leader. Talk more about what we're officially hearing from this police department amidst all this, the school district as well.
There are a number of investigations going on right now, Yasmin. There's an internal investigation with the Birmingham Police Department to determine exactly what happened. They say that that's typical anytime that there's force used during an arrest, and in this case, we're talking about the taser. The band director himself, Johnny Mims, is placed on leave, as is typical when there's an investigation going on within the school department. Now, his attorney is asking for those officers who were involved in this incident to also be placed on leave as well, pending the outcome of an investigation. She says she's making that formal request as well. Now, meanwhile, we know that there's going to be a news conference tomorrow, and they're going to be speaking more there. But she says in her statement, you see right there, this incident is an alarming abuse of power and a clear violation of our clients' civil rights. Yasmin.
Blaine Alexander, thank you for being on this for us. We appreciate you. Coming up, everybody, some breaking news on Hunter Biden, how his attorney says he'll plead to the firearm charges against him. New warnings tonight in California as well, after a woman says she got a flesh-eating bacteria from undercooked fish. What we are learning about her condition, plus more controversy around college rankings. Why some schools say the new formula used by U.S. News is not reliable. We'll be back. We're following that breaking news just into us. Hunter Biden saying he will not plead not guilty to the 3 federal firearm charges against him in a first court appearance that has not yet been scheduled. He's also asking to appear in court virtually, with our team just getting our hands on the court filing in the last few minutes. Want to go right to legal analyst Dana Cevallos to talk more about this. This is obviously about, Danny, those federal firearm charges. What more are we learning in this new court filing that we're getting in? And what does this say really about what's next?
It says that Hunter Biden's attorneys are just notifying the court that he's planning on pleading not guilty, and that services their second request, which is for Hunter Biden to appear remotely. And the argument is this is not something that is traditionally or ordinarily done, but in modern times, post-COVID, courts, including this court, have given permission for defendants to have their initial appearance by video instead of coming in. And the real reason is obvious. Hunter Biden doesn't want to go through the chaos of having to appear personally in court with the press outside and the cameras and everything else. This is something he would rather do by video. To me, I'm surprised that defendants in the Trump cases haven't pushed harder to have their arraignments handled this way. But this appears to be a reasonable-ish request, and that's why you see the signaling that he's going to plead not guilty.
So listen, David Weiss, appointed special counsel here by AG Merrick Garland. Right, you had Hunter Biden's attorneys a few weeks ago essentially saying they think this is going to get resolved before it actually goes to trial. We know this all blew up because the plea deal that went left 2 or so months ago. How do you see this thing actually playing out?
Consider this. Most federal cases end in guilty pleas. The vast majority, something like 90%. So just off the bat, this case will probably end in a non-trial resolution. But then you add to the fact that this is the very rare case where the parties, at least the defense, thought they were going to resolve it with a non-trial disposition, specifically pretrial diversion, which you'll remember broke up about a month ago. The parties walked into court. The defense thought, hey, we'll be here half an hour, and we're going to be out of here with a really good outcome, which is pretrial diversion. In federal court, that is so fantastic an outcome, it scarcely ever happens, because federal court is where most defendants go to lose.
All right, Danny Savalas for us. Thank you, Danny, for jumping on this. Appreciate it. And there goes your phone, so you're a busy man. Thanks, Danny. All right. U.S. News and World Report released its undergraduate college rankings with some of its biggest change in decades and its new formula for how it ranks. And it caused a bit of a shakeup. The top 10 stayed relatively unchanged, but it is further down the list where things get a little bit more interesting. Here you see some schools that jumped in the rankings and then others that dropped in some of those rankings. Many schools that rose are public and a lot of ones that fell are private. So you got a lot of folks paying money for those. These rankings have been scrutinized after complaints that they're unreliable, unfair, or that they disincentivize or de-incentivize, I should say, diversity efforts. It's something that we've covered in the past year or so when more than a dozen elite colleges dropped out of graduate school rankings. I want to bring in Emily Akeda for this to talk more about it. What is different about how these schools were ranked this year?
Yeah, a number of things. And it's really a response to some of that criticism that you have been alluding to, suggesting that these rankings were kind of outsized, having this outsized influence, that they're not equitable. So U.S. News, what they did, they tried to put more of an emphasis on outcome, put more of an emphasis on social mobility. We have a couple of the exact changes that they implemented in terms of protocol. Some of the factors they've actually removed from the ranking, so they're no longer considering class size, faculty with terminal degrees, essentially faculty who have the highest level of degree in their field of study. Alumni giving, high school class standings, that's no longer taken into consideration. Also, the proportion of graduates who borrow federal loans. So what are they putting more of an emphasis on? Well, they're going to put more of an emphasis on manageable debt, how much debt students have, postgraduate success, Pell recipient graduation rates. And this one's a new one, first generation graduation rate. So as a result, what we're seeing, as you had mentioned, is a good chunk of public schools improving their ranking, and private schools actually falling back.
What is the reason for changing the way they're ranking these schools, A? And B, who is the most angry about this right now?
I think there are a lot of opinions on this. I think Americans are a competitive people, and we look to rankings a lot. But I think put yourself back in your shoes as a high schooler. Selecting college can be a very overwhelming process. There are so many different things to consider, areas of expertise, location, where your friends are going to school. And so actually recent polls show that the majority of high schoolers, they do look to things like rankings, at least to consider when they're making that decision-making process. And so because we're seeing this significant shakeup in where schools are landing, sometimes it's 10 or 20 points improvement or backwards. Other times it's schools are falling 50, 60 plus.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, we're seeing a significant, that some schools are saying, okay, how reliable is this ranking? Wake Forest University, I spoke with their president. They point out, look, 17 out of the 18 schools that fell in rankings in the top 50 are private universities. So she's expressing some concern. Take a listen here.
I do not feel this ranking is reliable at all. Wake Forest University is no different today than it was a week ago. So these rankings really, I think, are a disservice to families who are trying to make decisions about which college or university is best.
So on the flip side of things, I also spoke with the president of Fresno State University, which improved their ranking significantly by more than 60 points. And that's a school that has actually a majority, the president points out, population that is first-generation students. So he's applauding the fact that they are putting more of an emphasis, this ranking, on social mobility, while also, pointing out that you have to take any kind of ranking with a grain of salt. Take a listen.
I think it reflects better
the impact that we have on the individual, the everyday person who comes to Fresno State, usually from a low, social economic background.
So we talked about how prominent law schools, medical schools, some people have been removing themselves from participating in these kinds of rankings. Columbia University actually followed suit, one of the only major schools, undergraduate programs to do so. But we haven't really seen a big wave come across the other undergraduate schools. Will we? I mean, that's a question that I think a lot of schools are pondering, Vanderbilt University among them. But I think the other thing to think about is the fact that even without these schools filling out these surveys for U.S. News's rankings, they still can pull from public data. So there's only so much that schools can control.
It's actually a really interesting conversation because when you think about it, I mean, Wake Forest has got a lot of money, right, in its back pocket. So it could easily kind of use that money to promote its school more, to get more students to come on board, when Fresno State is not necessarily a school that has a lot of money, especially from alumni. And so this would actually work in their favor when it comes to getting more student body on board. It's really interesting. And you made me think about when I was applying to schools, and this is definitely something that I looked at, the rankings of all of these schools and how that could actually affect enrollment as well.
I do think that one thing that everyone can get on board with is that you have to consider a myriad of things. It's not just the rankings. It's not just the location. No. There's a whole a list of things that people need to consider.
There's the catalog to look at.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. Thanks. All right. Want to get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, 2 people are now facing federal charges after 4 children overdosed at a New York City daycare. One of them was a 1-year-old boy, died last week. Law enforcement saying 1 kilogram of fentanyl was found next to mats that the children slept on. Investigators claim the daycare operator did not call 911 right away. Instead, she allegedly called a fellow drug dealer to try and hide the evidence. All right, number 2. A San Jose, California woman contracted a flesh-eating bacteria. Now Laura Barajas is a quadruple amputee. We're told she got sick after eating tilapia that she undercooked. According to a GoFundMe page for the mother of 1, she spent more than a month in the hospital with all her limbs removed in order to save her life. Number 3, India has kicked out a top Canadian diplomat. It comes after Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau suggested India may have been involved in the killing of a Sikh leader in the Vancouver area. India says that's crazy and is accusing Canada of interfering with its internal affairs. Canada has not presented any evidence of India being involved. This gets us over to number 4. Does this drink look like it has fruit? Well, a federal judge says Starbucks has to face a lawsuit claiming that some of its fruity refreshers don't actually have the advertised fruit in them. Mango, dragon fruit, lemonade, strawberry, acai, and pineapple passion fruit. They're all among the items named. Starbucks says in a statement, the allegations just aren't accurate. And then number 5, to round it out, a new study finding that a key to losing weight may be when you work out. Researchers found that people who exercised in the morning had lower body mass indexes than people who hit the gym later in the day. There are a couple of reasons researchers think the morning might be best, like exercising before eating could actually help you burn the body fat. All right, when we come back, shocking new video out of Arizona. What happened when a boat carrying dozens of people caught on fire? Plus, officials say there's a new drug in a new city at the center of overdose deaths. What a reporter found when he went there, next in tonight's Original. Welcome back. We want to bring you today's Original with in-depth reporting on a topic that we've been keeping an eye on. State lawmakers in Pennsylvania, they're getting ready to introduce a bunch of legislation aimed at fighting the rising threat of a deadly drug called tranq. It's an animal tranquilizer that has found its way into heroin and fentanyl supplies in Philadelphia, and it's now spreading throughout the country. NBC's George Solis traveled to ground zero for the dangerous new substance, Philly's Kensington neighborhood, where he spoke with business owners and volunteers on the front lines of this crisis. And we do want to warn you, the topics that are covered here and the imagery as well, it's graphic.
This is an anti-drug ad running in Mexico. It's not warning about places like Tijuana or Juarez, but instead the city of Philadelphia, specifically the Kensington neighborhood, home to one of the nation's largest open-air drug markets, where drug overdose deaths are skyrocketing, in large part because of a new substance in the drug supply, the powerful animal sedative xylazine, aka tranq. Store owner Elvis Amantia knows the devastation all too well. He's been cleaning up garbage, human waste, and discarded needles from his storefront every day for more than a decade.
How exhausting is it to have to clean up every single day?
It's a little bit frustrating, you know, that you got to keep doing it.
But he has nowhere to go.
Could there be a point where it becomes too much for you and your family to do this day in and day out?
I would say if any or my family or my employees get harmed, I think I'll think about it.
Tranq first appeared in Philly more than a decade ago, mixed in with heroin and fentanyl. But by 2021, it was found in 90% of all street opioid samples. And it's quickly spread throughout the country, increasing in some regions almost 200%. Tranq overdoses can't be reversed by Narcan, and many users develop flesh-eating infections that can lead to amputation if left untreated. In Kensington, limb-saving care takes place at street level on tables like this.
Have you saved lives on this table?
Yes, we absolutely have. Our team constantly saves lives.
Sarah Laurel runs Savage Sisters Recovery, providing care and housing for addicts and cleanups for the neighborhood. She draws on her own near-death experience with addiction to help those in need.
Seeing my friends on the street with their limbs exposed does not make me want to get high. It does not make me want to use. It makes me want to bring change. And I don't think that anybody could walk out there and see what we deal with on a daily basis and say, I want what they have.
Laurel says the city is ignoring its responsibility to both residents and the unhoused.
They're not coming through for the business owners that have been here. And this us against them mentality is exactly what the city wants. The infighting keeps the focus off of them.
Business owners and nonprofits in Kensington are fighting to promote positive change in the neighborhood with demands for basic needs like housing and funding for health resources. When we reached out, the city pointed to a number of programs and services it's launched to help address the community's needs, including crime prevention tips, storefront improvements, and a security camera program. But many here say it's not making enough of a difference.
The city treats this neighborhood as like the trash can.
Moving these people from one block to the other, it's not a solution. We cannot continue ignoring this because these are human beings.
Husband and wife, Dionisio and Mariangeli, must ask addicts to move away from their award-winning restaurant, Cantina La Martina, nearly every day.
These people have feelings, like they're human beings. They'll understand, they'll apologize, they'll pick up their things, and they'll leave, and they're sorry. Even
though Cantina was named a James Beard Award finalist, they say some food vendors won't even come to the restaurant because of the scene outside. Instead of being frustrated, Dio and Mariangeli feel that advocating for their community and those struggling with addiction has become part of the restaurant's mission.
We are here because we are business owners, but we're also here because we have a social responsibility.
Without the restaurant, we'll stay.
The Cantina, a pop of color amidst the dark depths of addiction.
George Solis joining us now. Really, really devastating stuff, but such an important topic to be covering right now, George. So we are thankful for you for that. I'm just wondering what businesses really have to do now to survive in a place like that with these drugs all around them and the devastation that they're dealing with every day.
Yeah, Yasmin, it's the cost of doing business in that Kensington section of Philadelphia. A lot of them call it the Kensington tax. Now, a lot of those businesses do get insurance, but they have to pay a higher premium. And to work things out with vendors, they have to go to different locations to pick up some of those items. And of course, no one is going to pay them to do this. They have to do this out of pocket to go to a different street, a different neighborhood to pick up some of these supplies. A lot of the issues that some of these business owners have are the encampments that are set up outside of their storefronts. Now, they move. The city does come eventually let these people know that they have to move, but it depends on how long these encampments have been there. So they struggle a lot with this daily, but they say, you know what, they're not going to resolve this any other way. They're not going to be hostile to the people that are setting up in their stores. They want to do this respectfully, and hopefully this community returns a favor in kind, Yasmin.
All right, George Solis for us. Thank you, George. Appreciate it. So NBC covers hundreds of stories every day. And because it's tough to read, to watch, to listen to all of them, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in the segment that we call The Local. So out of our Midwest bureau, a neighborhood outside of Chicago, it's in shock after a family of 4 was killed inside of their home. The 2 adults and 2 children were shot sometime over the weekend. Their 3 dogs were also killed. Police believe the shootings were not random, but they're, quote, not actively looking for suspects in the area. Neighbors saying the family moved there in April and mostly kept to themselves. From our Western Bureau, a 63-year-old man is recovering after being injured and left alone in the Grand Canyon. The local county sheriff's office says the hiker, quote, traumatically injured his shoulder after a fall, but a call for help did not come until 4 hours after the incident. The man told rescuers he was with 4 friends, but they left him after calling for help. The hiker is expected to be okay. And also from our Western Bureau, a houseboat erupts in flames, forcing more than 24 people to jump to safety. This happened on Arizona's Lake Powell. Group members say they were on board for about 45 minutes when they heard this loud boom. They claim the motor exploded. Everyone, including at least 1 infant, made it to safety somehow. Nobody was hurt. All right, a lot more coming up. A new investigation tonight into where the food that you eat may really come from. We are talking to the reporters behind this story next in tonight's Backstory. Plus, it's not jewelry or art. Why officials say hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of olive oil is being stolen in Spain. We'll be right back. All right, let's talk olive oil. The price of olive oil, it's way up this year. 130% higher last month than in the year before. The heat in countries like Spain hurting olive and olive oil production, and the high cost is driving some people to extreme measures to get their hands on this hot commodity. NBC's Claudio Lavanga has more.
At this mill in Spain, a liquid gold heist.
When we saw the capacity of the tanks, we saw that they had stolen 2 trucks worth of the oil system.
Local reports say thieves stole 13,000 gallons of olive oil, worth almost $500,000. And it comes after a string of messy olive oil-related crimes across the country. Earlier this year, police caught someone transporting stolen olives, which led them to this illicit oil mill. Officials seized tanks and arrested more than 12 people. And just weeks ago, local media reporting yet another incident, with olive oil spilled all over the floor, about $50,000 slipping away. So why is olive oil such a sizzling hot target now? Because prices are burning up. Spain is the world's biggest olive oil producer and exporter. With rising heat, its orchards are parched.
The olive tree is very sad, very dry, and with a great lack of water.
Mariluz Robio Romero owns an olive orchard in Granada, Spain. She says production's gotten worse and worse with years of drought.
I'm going to show you how the olive tree is. The lower twigs have no olives, just 4 olives in the top, and the olive tree is dry, as you can see.
And not enough olives means not enough olive oil. Spain's olive oil production so far this season is about half of what it was last year. And you can see global prices of olive oil shot up, reaching $8,900 a ton this year, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This is not normal, the oil at this point, because of the prices we have. When they are normal, like how they always are, it doesn't interest anyone to come and steal it.
And it's not just Spain. Dry weather across the Mediterranean is driving higher prices, with production expected to take a spill in places like Italy and Greece, according to industry analysts. Plus, Turkey is suspending bulk olive oil exports until November the 1st to keep up its own supply. Experts are already worried about next year's crop. With more hot and dry weather to come, there's no end in sight.
And Claudio Lavanga is joining us now. Fascinating stuff, Claudio, I have to say. Already kind of this diminished supply of olives and then subsequently olive oil, right? You're looking at the new harvest, I believe, in October. How do they make up the gap?
Hey, Yasmin. Well, a couple of ways. Let me just give you a couple of examples. For instance, farmers in Spain are trying to resolve these relatively modern issues caused by climate change and long droughts we experienced here in Italy and Spain and Greece, of course, by readopting ancient techniques. They are readopting the technique of cover crops. That means they are planting grasses and legumes in the rows between the olive trees. That's for a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, to prevent water from draining too fast, and also to prevent flash floods, because, of course, long droughts followed by heavy rain bring flash floods. Well, in Italy, cover crops are more common. Well, they are adopting more new age digital techniques. They are using sensors to evaluate the factors of the air, the soil, but also the temperature and the evaporation of, for instance, the leaves of the olive oil, of the olive trees. As you can see, a combination of old and new techniques, Yasmin.
Claudio Lavanga, no better backdrop than the low murmur of people enjoying themselves on a nice Italian night. Thanks for making us jealous. Thank you so much, Claudio. Appreciate it. All right, it's time to get the backstory, or behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. Tonight, two stories on how big companies may be shaping what we eat and drink. The Washington Post highlighting a new report out today that is published in the journal Addiction that found major tobacco companies use some of the same strategies they use to market cigarettes to get people hooked on processed foods. That happened back in the late 80s until the early 2000s when Big Tobacco owned some of the companies making these foods. They're tactics that still, by the way, have lasting impact today. Another way big companies are getting you to buy their products by paying influencers, dietitian influencers, to post videos promoting things like diet sodas, sweets, and supplements to millions of people on social media. The Post, partnering with The Examination in a joint investigation, found at least 35 posts like this one from health professionals in a campaign to promote an artificial sweetener that the WHO has been raising concerns about. We reached out to the influencer in this video for a comment. No surprise, have not heard back. The report says they're part of a coordinated campaign paid for by American Beverage, a lobbying group representing a lot of big soda companies. In a statement to NBC News, American Beverage says the artificial sweetener is safe and that the FDA and other food regulators have said that. They also told us that the dietitians they worked with were upfront about being paid for their posts and followed all federal and local guidelines. Anahad O'Connor is a columnist for The Washington Post who worked on both these stories and is joining us now. Anahad, thanks for joining us on this. Appreciate it. So our first instinct is to believe what someone who is licensed is telling you when it comes to health. But here you have this lobbying group representing the multi-billion-dollar food industry using this tactic that a lot of people might not even realize. At what point did you think this was something that warranted a deep dive?
Yeah, so we decided to analyze the social media pages of some of the most influential registered dietitians on TikTok and Instagram. And we found that of dietitians who had at least 10,000 followers or more, some of them had hundreds of thousands and millions of followers. We found that about half were promoting or paid to promote foods and products and beverages. But we were really surprised to find that some of the industries that were paying registered dietitians to post ads promoting their foods and products were, as you pointed out, the soda industry and also the sugar industry. We found, at least a dozen dietitians were paid by a sugar group to post videos on Instagram encouraging people to eat candy and ice cream and telling parents not to be too overly restrictive when it came to giving their kids sweets and encouraging parents to, in some cases have unlimited access to sweets. And we were pretty surprised by these findings.
So you mentioned, right, you analyzed thousands of posts, found that this sort of thing is happening all over the food industry, as you talked about, right, drink, dietary supplement industries as well. Talk about the process that you and your team had to go through to get all this data together.
Yeah, so we started by focusing on registered dietitians with at least 10,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram who were promoting themselves as RDs or dietitians and dispensing health advice. And we came across a number of them and we analyzed their posts. We found that in many cases, dietitians were promoting healthy foods, things like trail mix, fruits and vegetables, things you might, anticipate or expect a dietitian to be promoting. But there were many posts that we discovered were paid for by, like I said, the soda industry, the sugar industry. In the case of aspartame, this artificial sweetener, we discovered this campaign because the World Health Organization over the summer released 2 reports discouraging people from consuming artificial sweeteners, and in one case, labeling aspartame as a possible carcinogen. And we started to see all these posts pop up on Instagram and TikTok where dietitians were discussing the safety of aspartame and dismissing the WHO's findings and calling the findings clickbait and being very critical of the WHO and telling people not to worry, just ignore the findings. It's completely safe. And we started digging and saw that there were varying levels of disclosure on these posts. In some cases, these dietitians, in about 2/3 of the cases, had no mention at all of who was paying them to post these ads. And we, looked at the comments on these posts and saw that people were confused. They were saying, is this an ad? Who's paying for this? Who's your paid partner? Is this, were you paid to post this by the FDA, the WHO, by Big Aspartame? People were very confused. And we, found that pretty surprising and highlighted it in our story.
Really fascinating stuff. Anahad O'Connor, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, still to come, more fallout from Russell Brand tonight after allegations of sexual and emotional abuse, where he just got blocked from making money. That's coming up next. Tonight, the highest of stakes for Ukraine as world leaders meet at the UN General Assembly to discuss the path forward for helping the war-torn country. The message and the plea from Presidents Biden and Zelensky to stick by Ukraine's side no matter how long it takes. And then new questions tonight over the disappearance of that military fighter jet, how the Marines lost track of a $100 million piece of equipment. In Alabama, shocking new video showing police officers tasing a high school band leader, the violent arrest that came after police say he wouldn't stop the music. Then in the original, tranq, the dangerous drug that's finding its way into the hands of addicts across the country, how businesses and activists are dealing with the crisis overtaking one American neighborhood. And tonight, a shakeup on that controversial U.S. News college rankings list and why some schools are moving up and others are sliding way down. Hey, everybody, I'm Yasmin, in for Hallie tonight. And we start with the UN General Assembly here in New York, with Presidents Biden and Zelensky making urgent pleas to stay the course in supporting Ukraine's war efforts. Both men speaking earlier today with a clear and concise message as leaders at home and abroad are starting to get tired of pouring money into the fight against Russia.
Russia believes that the world will grow weary if we abandon the core principles of the United States to appease an aggressor. Can any member state in this body feel confident that they are protected?
We must act united to defeat the aggressor and focus all our capabilities and energy on addressing these challenges.
All right, so the U.S. has already spent $43 billion on the battlefield, even as Ukraine's crucial counteroffensive is struggling to make some serious gains. The president's speech was the centerpiece of a week of meetings with world leaders, with Ukraine, climate change, and a push for countries to work together at the top of the agenda. But the calls at the UN come in as House Republicans in Washington are hinting they're going to leave out any additional money for Ukraine. Excuse me, everybody. In their short-term funding bill to keep the government running. Speaker McCarthy unveiling a bill on Sunday containing spending cuts and conservative border policies, but no mention of a dime for Ukraine or disaster relief. Mike Memley here to save me.
Let's talk about what the president said today, because the big theme of his speech today was democracy, right? It was about the importance of democracies working together to solve some of the biggest challenges in the world, of strengthening democracy. And there were a number of policy areas in which the president laid out ways in which he has been able to rally the world to act on things like the climate crisis, on supporting infrastructure development in the developing world. But obviously front and center was Ukraine. And so the president didn't spend nearly as much time as he did a year ago in terms of making the case he did, as you heard him say, if we do not stand with Ukraine, what country is next? But it was a little bit of a tag team approach, too. This is really what I think is important, because the overhanging all of this is that the U.S., some of our allies have said this is an important year. We need to see significant progress on the battlefield from Ukraine in order to sustain support for it moving forward. And we haven't seen that. And so that's why you're seeing this sort of tag team approach by the president, by President Zelensky, who made some pretty stark warnings himself in his speech. And you're going to see the show continue moving to Washington.
Talk about the leverage the president has right now in Washington.
It's interesting because, remember, so much of what he's been able to do in terms of financial support, translating into military and security assistance for Ukraine, has been under a unified unified Democratic Congress. Well, now we have Republicans in charge. We remember what Speaker McCarthy said when he became Speaker, which is no more blank check for Ukraine. So that's part of why the invitation was extended to meet with Zelensky, not here in New York during the UN, but to bring him to Washington. The White House thinks he is the most effective messenger for his people. But it's interesting to see he's going to have some bipartisan meetings, but the focus will be on some of those meetings with only Republicans. And let's get a little bit of a flavor of what we are hearing today on Capitol Hill from those Republicans.
It's going to be, hand out more requests for money, and my position on that's clear. My mind on that is made up.
I have questions for him. Where's the accountability on the money we already spent? What is the plan for victory? I think that's what the American public wants to know.
And so we're going to see Zelensky meeting at the White House. He's going to have a series of meetings on Capitol Hill. But then to go to the Pentagon, we usually see a rollout of some new assistance. The question is, are there going to be any new capabilities for Ukraine that's announced?
I want to switch gears here. I want to talk about the meeting that the president's going to be having with Israeli PM Bibi Netanyahu. There's been a lot of tension between these two men over the last couple of months, to say the least, because of the judicial overhaul inside Israel. What is the White House approach to this meeting?
Well, President Biden has known Prime Minister Netanyahu for decades. I traveled to Israel with Vice President Biden not long ago, and they had a private dinner that went on for hours. We almost had to stay an extra day in Israel because this meeting went on so long. But the policy differences between these two, there's a lot of tension there. On the one hand, the White House is hopeful that they can build on, remember the Abraham Accords? It was a Trump administration initiative to see Israel normalize relationships with some of its Arab neighbors. They're trying to build on that. They think there's a path to do that. So that's sort of on the positive side of what this meeting might entail. But there continue to be tensions about what Israelis' domestic politics are. You mentioned the judicial reforms. And what have we been talking about this week? That Iranian prisoner swap, that's still a source of tension in the relationship.
Mike Memley, as always, we're thankful for you.
Thank you.
And thank you for saving me, by the way. All right, some breaking news, everybody, just into us. Hunter Biden saying he will plead not guilty to the 3 firearm charges against him in a first court appearance that has not yet been scheduled. He's also asking to appear in court virtually with our team, just getting our hands on the court filing in the last hour or so. I want to go straight to legal analyst Danny Savalas to talk more about this. So we're talking about, Danny, those federal firearms charges. What more are we learning in this new court filing, and what does this say about what comes next year?
Hunter Biden's attorneys are signaling that they want to plead not guilty. And they're doing that to support the request, rather, for a virtual appearance at his next court hearing instead of having to come in and appear in person. So as a way to kind of assuage the court, they're saying, look, we're going to plead not guilty anyway. This is going to be easy. Let us appear virtually. You've done it before, court, in the past. Most recently, in January of this year, the same court allowed a defendant to appear virtually for this kind of court appearance. So it's not special treatment. They're arguing that Hunter Biden is just like any other defendant asking for a virtual appearance that has been given to any other defendant.
Danny, quickly here, how are things going to play out with this, right? Because you had Hunter's attorneys essentially saying they thought this was going to get figured out before they actually went to trial. This is obviously all coming because of this bungled plea deal that happened just about 6 or so weeks ago. How are you seeing this thing kind of play out?
Hunter Biden's defense team would have a hard time bluffing the prosecution or the government saying, we're going to go to trial and we're going to win, because they already marched into court really interested in entering into a pretrial diversionary agreement and pleading guilty. So it's very likely that Hunter Biden's defense team still wants a non-trial disposition of this case. And while that pretrial diversion deal may be off the table forever, who knows, though? That's totally up to the prosecutors. They may, or likely will still explore a non-trial disposition, whether that be a guilty plea or theoretically, I guess the prosecutor could reoffer pretrial diversion. It's just not very likely now.
All right, Danny Savalas for us. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. All right, so right now, everybody, the military is investigating how that missing F-35 fighter jet basically disappeared for 24 hours before the wreckage and the debris was actually discovered in South Carolina. In this pretty bizarre saga that's getting a lot of attention, and it's raising a lot of questions as well, because we still don't know what went wrong in this so-called mishap that led this pilot to eject from this F-35, how the military lost such a high-tech, expensive jet, and then why the technology that they have to find a rogue plane failed. The White House committing today to finding those answers. Here's John Kirby with Andrea Mitchell.
How does the U.S. military lose a $100 million plane?
That will be something that they will investigate.
And as the Defense Department always does, they'll be transparent about it when they find the answers.
All right, want to bring in Sam Brock to talk more about this. I put some of the big questions out there, Sam, essentially how this actually could have even happened and why it took so long for them to find this jet. When are we going to get answers?
So, look, there's a lot of activity behind me. That's the debris field right there, Yasmin. In terms of answers, though, not a lot of those. Let's talk for a second about how many institutions and entities are involved in trying to figure this out. Certainly, you have the Marine Corps. They're the lead. You have the Navy. You have local law enforcement, the Williamsburg County Sheriff's Department, the FAA, all of these different entities. But at the end of the day, it's the Marine Corps that has to release that information. So when Mr. Kirby says they will be transparent when they have it, this could be, I'm told, a matter of months to really get to the bottom of what happened. The transponder is such a key question in all this. That's what would track the fighter jet, I should say, the stealth fighter jet, to let authorities know where it went. Well, why was it not working? Because Joint Base Charleston says it wasn't. It's not clear. Did it stop working when the pilot ejected? Was it never working at any point? And is there a backup mechanism because of the secrecy surrounding this aircraft? We don't know. I will tell you, on the ground here in Indiantown, the small little unincorporated community of fewer than 1,000 people, they said after 2 o'clock on Sunday, that's when they first heard sounds from what sounded like the jet. One guy described it going over his house. Another woman said her home was actually shaking side to side, knocked picture frames off the wall that hit her in the head, and they came out to investigate and did not see anything. It was not until 24 hours later, give or take, that the Marine Corps confirmed that this debris field is here and they had located the jet. Why is there that gap also? I did speak with eyewitnesses, too. They tell me exactly what it looked like, and this is moments before that jet crashes. Take a listen.
So low, and it was kind of probably 100 feet above the treetops, and almost going inverted.
The jet itself was inverted.
It was like this when it went over the treetops, and when we heard the boom, thud afterwards, we were thinking, it couldn't be a sonic boom, and we were thinking it was rolling thunder in the distance.
That couple sees military exercises, Yasmin, all the time around here, so they didn't think anything of it and report it. When they did call on Monday at 4 o'clock, by 6 o'clock, the jet's presence was confirmed.
So Marine Corps reaction to all this is, okay, let's ground some jets, their aircrafts, for at least one more day to avoid this happening in the future. The thing is, this is not the first time that something like this or a mishap has actually happened. How do they expect a 2-day grounding to actually solve things?
Yeah, it's a recent history that's so concerning here, Yasmin, when you look at the fact that Marines died on multiple occasions within the last month, once in San Diego, another time off the coast of Australia. 3 Marines died in that case. So this is all happening recently. I'm told it's standard protocol to have the safety stand down whenever there's a significant crash. This would qualify as that. But we're just really lucky in this situation that the jet ended up in a field of grass and all these wooded trees and not on someone's house. That right now is the bottom line.
Yeah, really good point. Sam Brock for us. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. All right, so millions of Americans who suffer life-threatening allergies could soon be able to use a nasal spray to treat severe allergic reactions because the FDA is deciding whether or not to approve a product called Neffy. This is a needle-free alternative to an EpiPen, the self-injectable device that contains epinephrine, a drug that stops life-threatening allergic reactions to things like food, medications, or insect stings. Advocates are saying this new nasal spray, it's easy to use, and it's easier and more accessible for people who fear injections or have a hard time giving themselves a shot from an EpiPen. I want to bring in Dr. Akshay Sayal to talk more about this. Talk to me about how this actually works, and is it as effective as quickly as an EpiPen?
Hey, Yasmin. So what Neffy is you take an EpiPen, right? I think a lot of us have seen this in popular culture, even if you don't have allergies, where somebody's throat may be closing and you stab them with this pen and then they get better. So what they did was they took that concept and said, how can we make this easier for people to get? People who may be afraid of needles. How can we make it easier to carry? And they looked to allergy medicine like Flonase or even Narcan, which is an opiate overdose treatment. It's a nasal spray, right? It's a lot easier to give than an injection. So essentially what this is combining those two to make that EpiPen in a nasal form more accessible to people, and for those who are afraid of needles, something that they would be more willing to try.
So who can use this? Who is this best for, right? And is insurance going to cover it like it does with EpiPens? So, yeah, it's a great question. Insurance companies don't typically weigh in until we see that FDA approval. So while the FDA is deciding whether or not to approve that, that's one thing that we'll look for if should it get approved.
But who is this best for? It's really that group of people that we talked about who's afraid of needles. Specifically, you have to be over 66 pounds to use this, and that's just because that's the group that was studied. But this could benefit people of all ages. I had, a friend in medical school who was afraid of needles, and he almost passed out every time he would draw blood. So it's not just young kids, and it's not just older adults. It's kind of across the spectrum. We could see people benefit from this.
So talk to me about, as you mentioned, how this works, right? As a nasal spray, we all know Flonase. I mean, how many pumps do you have to give if you're having a severe anaphylactic reaction? For instance, my son has a shrimp allergy. If he were to have a reaction because he accidentally ate some shrimp, am I just giving him one spray in one nostril, and that's supposed to save his life?
Yeah, so it works just like it's a spray in the nostril, and it works just like the EpiPen that you inject, and it kind of just, when you have anaphylaxis, your throat could close up, or your heart rate could get really weak, and essentially that epinephrine, that compound that you mentioned in the intro there, it gets absorbed into the body really rapidly. This works just as well as the pen, I should add, to really, pop open those airways and stop that life-threatening reaction.
Last one, is it reusable?
It's kind of depends on when the FDA approves this. They're going to kind of go over the formulations and everything like that. But typically, these nasal sprays aren't reusable. But we're waiting to see what happens.
Dr. Akshay Sayal, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so 5 Americans freed from detention in Iran back on American soil tonight, arriving near D.C. after flying halfway around the world, met with an emotional reunion with friends, family, and supporters on the tarmac.
1, 2, 3, freedom!
I just can't believe it. It's too long. 5.5 years.
5.5 years. The Americans' trip home saw them fly from Tehran to Qatar. American officials saying the Qataris played a key role in securing the prisoners' freedom before boarding another plane back to the United States. American officials are making it clear this does not symbolize a lowering of tensions between both the United States and Iran. With President Biden and Iranian President Raisi in New York for the United Nations General Assembly this week, but not expected to meet face-to-face. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is in Virginia for us, where the freed prisoners arrived earlier this morning. Gabe, as always, my friend, great to talk to you. Give us first what is next for these freed Americans now that they're back on American soil.
Oh, hi there, Yasmin. Well, those Americans are undergoing mental and physical evaluations right now, and they're going to be getting a lot of help from the military, obviously after undergoing years of significant trauma. And they will be helped by counselors and really trying to get them back into their daily lives as some sort of normalcy. Easier said than done at this point. We understand from administration officials that physically they're doing okay, but it's that psychological trauma. Now, I can tell you, Yasmin, I spoke with a source close to the family of one of those prisoners, said not only was it an emotional reunion, it was an emotional plane flight, that the group had a lamb and wine, and it never tasted so good after so many years in captivity. And you saw the images, you're watching them, of that emotional reunion on the tarmac here at this Army base. Let's take a listen at what one of the prisoners had to say.
The nightmare is finally over. I've dreamt about this moment, and each time I've woken up and just been in disbelief, like, why am I dreaming these dreams and not happening? And today and tonight it happened. We're grateful for this moment, really, and we've got to start building our lives again.
Again, family members are so happy to have those prisoners back after years of tense negotiations. Yes.
Yeah. So I mentioned how this plays into kind of the relationship between the United States and Iran. Secretary Blinken saying yesterday that this deal, it doesn't speak to anything else in this relationship. When you think about the domestic turmoil inside Iran, the sanctions recently leveled against Iran as well. What is next for these two countries?
Well, Yasmin, don't expect a sea change here. The Biden administration is very quick to point out that while they're not closing the door on diplomacy at this point, there are no plans to directly engage with Iran, no direct talks scheduled. And this is because the Iranian government, the Biden administration says, continues to wrongfully detain Americans, and they have no indication that it plans to stop doing that. Actually, the Biden administration announced new sanctions yesterday on Iran's ministry Ministry of Intelligence, as well as former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, for the disappearance back in 2007 of a former FBI agent who is presumed dead. He's presumed to have died in Iranian custody, although the Iranian government has never acknowledged his arrest. That American's family is still demanding answers, and so is the Biden administration at this point. So, Yasmin, there's that. There's those implications. There's also the controversy here in the United States about whether this was a good deal, whether that $6 billion in unlocked funds should have been unfrozen for the Iranian government. Republicans arguing that it amounted to a ransom payment and could encourage more bad behavior in the future by Iran. But certainly the Biden administration pushing back on that, saying that the payments will be, that the humanitarian aid will be monitored here, that the transactions will be monitored. But the question remains, will this thaw relations with Iran in the near or long term? At this point, it doesn't believe to be the case. Yes.
Gabe Gutierrez for us. Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate it. All right, we're hearing tonight from a high school band director who was tased by police officers who wanted him to stop music after a football game in Birmingham, Alabama.
I'm having a hard time sleeping. You know, it's just one of those experiences that you, as an educator or as a person, that you never think that you would be involved with.
So we're about to show you this video of the altercation, and I want to warn you that you may find it disturbing. The text on the screen was added by the Birmingham Police Department. So police are saying that the band director, Johnny Mims, refused to stop his band from playing after the game ended on Thursday. The police officers approached Mims, trying to handcuff and then arrest him. Mims has been charged with disorderly conduct, harassment, and resisting arrest. His lawyer says police used excessive force and wrongfully arrested him. Blaine Alexander is joining us now with more on this. I know that you spoke, Blaine, to Johnny Mims. Walk us through what happened from his perspective and what else he's saying.
Well, Yasmin, what we see, of course, is what unfolds in that video, but there are two very different sides and different stories as to what exactly led up to that. So you heard the police side. Basically, they say that they were trying to clear the stadium. They asked both directors to stop their bands from playing. One of the directors complied. The other did not. Things escalated and led to what you saw right there, them trying to put him under arrest and him not complying. But when I spoke with Johnny Mims, he paints a very different picture. He says that what was taking place in the minutes after the game itself ended last week was what they call the fifth quarter. Something that really is something that you would expect at a high school football game, that both bands kind of keep playing a few songs back and forth as the crowd leaves the stadium. And that's something that they typically do. He says it's something that he coordinated with the other band director. And so they weren't doing anything out of the ordinary. But he says that he was on the podium directing his band when an officer came up to him, told him to stop. He told them that they were in the final song, and things escalated from there. Take a look.
I do remember asking officers, like, why you grabbing me? You know, what did I do? And before I know it, I did see the officer tase me. I went down, and after that point, I was tased additional 2 more times by the same officer and then a different officer.
Now, he told me that he was on the podium directing. If you are familiar with what bands look like, you know that the director is kind of elevated above his students. He said he had almost 150 students that he was trying to keep eyes on, but actually one of the officers came up the podium and tried to get him down, and that's where it escalated from there, Yasmin.
So tell me, what more are the police department saying about this, about the incident that took place, and then how is the school responding as well, especially as we now see this video?
Well, let's start with the police department. They say that any time there's a use of force when it comes to an arrest, which we saw right there with the deployment of the taser, that it is put under an internal investigation. So that's what's happening right now. They're investigating internally. The school district is conducting its own investigation, and the director, Johnny Mims, is on administrative leave pending the outcome of that investigation. Now, his attorney told me today that she's asking for the same thing for those officers, that they also be placed on leave pending the outcome of the investigation. She's putting in that request formally tomorrow. Now, we also know that we're going to hear from the director, from his union tomorrow as well, speaking out at a news conference in the morning. But bottom line, his attorney is calling it an alarming abuse of power and a clear violation of our clients' civil rights. Yasmin.
Blaine Alexander. Thank you, Blaine. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Still ahead this hour, everybody. College rankings fall out. Who's up, who's down in the latest U.S. News and World Report list. The types of schools impacted the most by this new formula. Plus, The dramatic action taken in Australia's largest city as crews race to control dozens of wildfires. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So U.S. News & World Report released its undergraduate college rankings with some of its biggest change in decades, and its new formula for how it ranks caused a bit of a shakeup. The top 10 stayed relatively unchanged, but it's further down the list where things get a little bit more interesting. Here you see some schools that jumped in the rankings and others that dropped pretty significantly. Many schools that rose are public, and a lot of the ones that fell are private. These rankings, they've been scrutinized after complaints that they're unreliable, unfair, or that they de-incentivize diversity efforts. It's something that we've covered in the past year or so. When more than a dozen elite colleges dropped out of graduate school rankings, I want to bring in Emily Ikeda, who's been following this for us. What is the thing that stands out the most when it comes to how these schools are ranked differently?
Yeah, well, I think one of the big questions is why are they totally rechanging the formula, and why is the formula leading to such significant changes? Like, we're not talking about schools, you know, moving 1 or 2, 3 slots, single digits. We're talking about schools moving up 40, 50, 50 slots or vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like one of the big centerpieces around why this is such a talker. And so from U.S. News' perspective, they have listened to some of the criticism over recent years, and they decided, okay, we're going to put a greater emphasis on the outcome of students. What do their lives look like after they're graduating, as well as taking a bigger appreciation for the value of diversified socioeconomic backgrounds of its student population. So looking at the exact points of what they're taking away, stripping away, you can see there class size. They're no longer taking into consideration when generating these rankings. Faculty with terminal degrees, so faculty at the highest level in their field, alumni giving, high school class standings, and the proportion of graduates who borrow federal loans. Those are the groups, those are the things they're no longer considering. This is what they're putting more weight on: manageable debt, postgraduate success, Pell recipient graduation rates, and this is a new one here, first-generation graduation rates, so students who will be the first to enter college in their family. And so we really have seen an improvement in rankings among the public universities, or at least a good chunk of them, and the private universities kind of falling back.
So if you're a school that got a jump, that went up, you're pretty happy about it today.
Absolutely.
Right? If you're a school, though, that dropped significantly, especially because a lot of folks that are looking to enroll in some of these schools, they're looking at these rankings. These are pretty famous rankings. They were famous back when I went to college. They're famous now. How are they reacting?
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. And speaking to the longevity of this survey, this is something that's been around for nearly 40 years. And when you think about all of the different things...
I did not go to school 40 years ago.
Clarifying. When you think about all the things you have to take into consideration in making a decision for college, this is oftentimes a major, at least a contributing factor when people are making their decisions. And so when you look at from the perspective of like a Wake Forest University or University of Chicago, there's Dartmouth on there. Those are some of the prestigious schools that have actually received a worse ranking.
Wow.
They're asking, okay, well, how is it that last year I was 27 and this year I'm 49 or something in that regard? So I actually asked, I spoke with Wake Forest University's president about this very topic, and she called it flat out unreliable, this survey. Take a listen here.
I do not feel this ranking is reliable at all. Wake Forest University is no different today than it was a week ago. So these rankings really, I think, are a disservice to families who are trying to make decisions about which college or university is best.
And we talked about how, okay, well, on the flip side of things, the schools who have seen an improvement, of course, they're going to be happier about it. So I talked to Fresno State University, who actually saw an improvement of more than 60 slots. And that's a school that has a majority of the population are first-generation students. And even the president there says, okay, this survey, this ranking, it's not perfect, but he appreciates the greater emphasis on a student body population that comes from a diversified socioeconomic background and the value that brings to the community and the school. Take a listen.
I think it reflects better the impact that we have on the individual, the everyday person who comes to Fresno State, usually from a low, social economic background.
So recently, we've seen some prestigious law and medical schools actually back out of participating in these kinds of surveys. Columbia University doing the same. So will other schools follow suit? Only time will tell.
It is also interesting, though, that none of the Ivies, the top 10s, really didn't have any shifting, even though they're using all these different metrics. That doesn't necessarily make any sense to me. Emily, thank you. I appreciate it. Really fascinating stuff. All right, I want to get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number one, today West Point was sued over using race and ethnicity in its admissions decisions. It's coming from students for fair admissions, the group behind other affirmative action lawsuits. You'll remember the Supreme Court months ago struck down affirmative action, but it did not cover military academies like West Point. The U.S. Military Academy says it does not comment on ongoing investigations. A San Jose, California woman contracted a flesh-eating bacteria. Now, she is a quadruple amputee. We are told she got sick after eating tilapia that she undercooked. According to a GoFundMe page for the mother of one, she spent more than a month in the hospital and had all 4 of her limbs removed to save her life. Number 3. Attorneys for the suspect in the Delphi murders claim their client did not have anything to do with the killings. The suspect has pled not guilty, and in a court filing, his attorneys say the 2 girls found dead in 2017 were instead killed in a ritual sacrifice by members of a pagan religious group that were also white nationalists. The county prosecutor's office has not responded to these claims. Number 4. Does this drink look like it has fruit? Well, a federal judge says Starbucks has to face a lawsuit claiming that some of its fruity refreshers don't actually have the advertised fruit in them. Mango, dragon fruit lemonade, strawberry acai, and pineapple passion fruit, they're all among the items named. Starbucks says in a statement the allegations, they're just not accurate. Number 5, we're getting our first look at Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's baby son, Riot Rizza, born last month. Look at him. They're now a family of 4. You can see Big Brother there. Excuse me, Riot Rose, and then you can see Big Brother there, Rizza, as well. Sorry, I got that wrong, Rihanna. Love you. Coming up, everybody, fighting the threat of a deadly drug. How a Pennsylvania neighborhood became the front line of a tranq crisis, and the new steps being taken to try to save lives. Plus, why the Spanish soccer star at the center of the World Cup kiss controversy is blasting her new coach. Stay with us. All right, we want to bring you today's original with in-depth reporting on a topic that we have been keeping an eye on. State lawmakers in Pennsylvania, they're getting ready to introduce a bunch of legislation aimed at fighting the rising threat of a deadly drug, tranq. It's an animal tranquilizer that has found its way into heroin and fentanyl supplies in Philadelphia, and it's now spreading across the country. NBC's George Solis traveled to ground zero for the dangerous new substance, Philly's Kensington neighborhood, where he spoke with business owners and volunteers on the front lines of this crisis. And we want to warn you, the topics covered here and the imagery as well, it is graphic.
This is an anti-drug ad running in Mexico. It's not warning about places like Tijuana or Juarez, but instead the city of Philadelphia, specifically the Kensington neighborhood, home to one of the nation's largest open-air drug markets, where drug overdose deaths are skyrocketing, in large part because of a new substance in the drug supply, the powerful animal sedative xylazine, aka tranq. Store owner Elvis Amancio knows the devastation all too well. He's been cleaning up garbage, human waste, and discarded needles from his storefront every day for more than a decade.
How exhausting is it to have to clean up every single day?
He said it'd be frustrating, you know, that you got to keep doing it.
But he has nowhere to go.
Could there be a point where it becomes too much for you and your family to do this day in and day out?
I would say if any of my family or my employees get harmed, I think I'll think about it.
Tranq first appeared in Philly more than a decade ago, mixed in with heroin and fentanyl, but by 2021, it was found in 90% of all street opioid samples, and it's quickly spread throughout the country, increasing in some regions almost 200%. Tranq overdoses can't be reversed by Narcan, and many users develop flesh-eating infections that can lead to amputation if left untreated. In Kensington, limb-saving care takes place at street level on tables like this.
Have you saved lives on this table?
Yes, we absolutely have. Our team constantly saves lives.
Sarah Laurel runs Savage Sisters Recovery, providing care and housing for addicts and cleanups for the neighborhood. She draws on her own near-death experience with addiction to help those in need.
Seeing my friends on the street with their limbs exposed does not make me want to get high. It does not make me want to use. It makes me want to bring change. And I don't think that anybody could walk out there and see what we deal with on a daily basis and say, I want what they have.
Laurel says the city is ignoring its responsibility to both residents and the unhoused.
They're not coming through for the business owners that have been here. And this us against them mentality is exactly what the city wants. The infighting keeps the focus off of them.
Business owners and nonprofits in Kensington are fighting to promote positive change in the neighborhood with demands for basic needs like housing and funding for health resources. When we reached out, the city pointed to a number of programs and services it's launched to help address the community's needs, including crime prevention tips, storefront improvements, and a security camera program. But many here say it's not making enough of a difference.
The city treats this neighborhood is like the trash can.
Moving these people from one block to the other, it's not a solution. We cannot continue ignoring this because these are human beings.
Husband and wife, Dionisio and Mariangeli, must ask addicts to move away from their award-winning restaurant, Cantina La Martina, nearly every day.
These people have feelings, like they're human beings. They'll understand, they'll apologize, they'll pick up their things, and they'll leave, and they're sorry. Even
though Cantina was named a James Beard Award finalist, they say some food vendors won't even come to the restaurant because of the scene outside. Instead of being frustrated, Dio and Mariangeli feel that advocating for their community and those struggling with addiction has become part of the restaurant's mission.
We are here because we are business owners, but we're also here because we have a social responsibility.
With or without the restaurant, we'll stay.
The Cantina, a pop of color amidst the dark depths of addiction.
And George Solis joining us now. I get business owners, they want to stay invested in neighborhoods like this, even though all this is going on around them. But with that in mind, how are they surviving?
Yeah, Yasmin, it's the cost of doing business in the Kensington section of Philadelphia. A lot of business owners there call it the Kensington tax. So, for example, you have insurance. Now, some business owners say they simply can't get anyone to insure them, but others say they can, just at a higher premium. As far as that conversation about food vendors, well, a lot of business owners and restaurateurs, they have to work out deals with vendors to meet them at different locations so that they can get some of their supplies. And of course, this is all coming out of their pocket. Nobody's compensating them for this, but it's what they have to do to survive. And another big issue for a lot of the businesses down there are these encampments that are set up in front of storefronts. And you heard there in that story that sometimes they just have to have a conversation with them and move them. Now, sometimes the city will come in and also provide eviction notices, but it all depends on how long these encampments, these tent cities, if you will, have been set up. Bottom line here, a lot of these business owners say they want to work with the neighborhood. They don't want to do it by being hostile to the people. They want everyone to basically work together, and they hope that the community will respond in kind. Yasmin?
George Solis for us. Thank you, George. Really important stuff. Appreciate it. All right, so NBC covers hundreds of international stories every day. And because it's tough to read, watch, or listen to all of them, our international teams have done it for you. Here are some things that they're keeping an eye on in a segment that we call The Global. So from Spain, local media showing players on the women's soccer team reporting to training camp today, even though some said they would boycott the team. They've been protesting since their World Cup teammate, Jenny Hermoso, got an unwanted kiss from the former soccer chief. The players say that people who don't show up to camp risk breaking a Spanish sports law. Hermoso herself was not called up for the national team's next games. The coach said this was to, quote, protect her, to which Hermoso responded, protect me from what? All right, out of Australia, Sydney is banning all open fires there for the first time in 3 years as wildfires rip through the region. 20 schools shut down as well. Officials saying over 60 wildfires are burning and 13 of them are out of control in Australia's most populous state, New South Wales. And then over to New Zealand. You've heard of sponsoring a highway. Well, now you can sponsor part of the ocean. The tiny Pacific island nation of Niue has a plan where people or companies can pay $148 to take care of around 250 acres of ocean. They're supposed to protect it from threats like plastic waste and illegal fishing for 2 decades. The island hopes to raise around $18 million in total. All right, just ahead, surging oil prices. And we're not talking about cars. Why the cost of olive oil is through the roof. And speaking of what you eat, we're going to dive into the ways your buying habits are being influenced, why the tactics are nothing new. That's tonight in The Backstory. All right, let's talk olive oil. The price of olive oil, it's way up this year. 130% higher last month than in the year before. The heat in countries like Spain hurting olive and olive oil production, and the high cost is driving some people to extreme measures to get their hands on this hot commodity. NBC's Claudio Lavunga has more.
At this mill in Spain,
a liquid gold heist.
When we saw the capacity of the tanks, we saw that they had stolen 2 trucks worth of the oil system.
Local reports say thieves stole 13,000 gallons of olive oil, worth almost $500,000. And it comes after a string of messy olive oil-related crimes across the country. Earlier this year, police caught someone transporting stolen olives, which led them to this illicit oil mill. Officials seized tanks and arrested more than a dozen people. And just weeks ago, local media reporting yet another incident, with olive oil spilled all over the floor, about $50,000 slipping away. So why is olive oil such a sizzling hot target now? Because prices are burning up. Spain is the world's biggest olive oil producer and exporter. With rising heat, its orchards are parched.
The olive tree is very sad, very dry, and with a great lack of water.
Mariluz Robio Romero owns an olive orchard in Granada, Spain. She says production's gotten worse and worse with years of drought.
I'm going to show you how the olive tree is. The lower twigs have no olives, just 4 olives in the top, and the olive tree is dry, as you can see.
And not enough olives means not enough olive oil. Spain's olive oil production so far this season is about half of what it was last year. And you can see global prices of olive oil shot up, reaching $8,900 a ton this year, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This is not normal, the oil at this point, because of the prices we have. When they are normal, like how they always are, it doesn't interest anyone to come and steal it.
And it's not just Spain. Dry weather across the Mediterranean is driving higher prices, with production expected to take a spill in places like Italy and Greece, according to industry analysts. Plus, Turkey is suspending bulk olive oil exports until November the 1st to keep up its own supply. Experts are already worried about next year's crop. With more hot and dry weather to come, there's no end in sight.
And Claudio Lavanga is joining us now. Fascinating stuff, Claudio, I have to say. Already kind of this diminished supply of olives and then subsequently olive oil, right? You're looking at the new harvest, I believe, in October. How do they make up the gap?
Hey, Yasmin. Well, a couple of ways. Let me just give you a couple of examples. For instance, farmers in Spain are trying to resolve these relatively modern issues caused by climate change and long droughts we experienced here in Italy and Spain and Greece, of course, by readopting ancient techniques. They are readopting the technique of cover crops. That means they are planting grasses and legumes in the rows between the olive trees. That's for a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, to prevent water from draining too fast, and also to prevent flash floods, because of course long droughts followed by heavy rain bring flash floods. Well, in Italy, well, cover crops are more common. Well, they are adopting more new age digital techniques. They are using sensors to evaluate the factors of the air, the soil, but also the temperature and the evaporation of, for instance, the leaves of the olive oils, of the olive trees. As you can see, a combination of old and new techniques, Yasmin.
Claudio Lavanga, no better backdrop than the low murmur of people enjoying themselves on a nice Italian night. Thanks for making us jealous. Thank you so much, Claudio. Appreciate it. All right, it's time to get the backstory, or behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. Tonight, 2 stories on how big companies may be shaping what we eat and drink. The Washington Post highlighting a new report out today that is published in the journal Addiction that found major tobacco companies use some of the same strategies they use to market cigarettes to get people hooked on processed foods. It happened back in the late 80s until the early 2000s when Big Tobacco owned some of the companies making these foods. They're tactics that still, by the way, have lasting impact today. Another way big companies are getting you to buy their products by paying influencers, dietitian influencers, to post videos promoting things like diet sodas, sweets, and supplements to millions of people on social media. The Post, partnering with The Examination in a joint investigation, found at least 35 posts like this one from health professionals in a campaign to promote an artificial sweetener that the WHO has been raising concerns about. We reached out to the influencer in this video for a comment. No surprise, have not heard back. The report says they're part of a coordinated campaign paid for by American Beverage, a lobbying group representing a lot of big soda companies. In a statement to NBC News, American Beverage says the artificial sweetener is safe and that the FDA and other food regulators have said that. They also told us that the dietitians they worked with were upfront about being paid for their posts and followed all federal and local guidelines. Anahad O'Connor is a columnist for The Washington Post who worked on both these stories and is joining us now. Anahad, thanks for joining us on this. Appreciate it. So our first instinct is to believe what someone who is licensed is telling you when it comes to health. But here you have this lobbying group representing the multi-billion-dollar food industry using this tactic that a lot of people might not even realize. At what point did you think this was something that warranted a deep dive?
Yeah, so we decided to analyze the social media pages of some of the most influential registered dietitians on TikTok and Instagram. And we found that of dietitians who had at least 10,000 followers or more, some of them had hundreds of thousands and millions of followers. We found that about half were promoting or paid to promote foods and products and beverages. But we were really surprised to find that some of the industries that were paying registered dietitians to post ads promoting their foods and products were, as you pointed out, the soda industry and also the sugar industry. We found, at least a dozen dietitians were paid by a sugar group to post videos on Instagram encouraging people to eat candy and ice cream and telling parents not to be too overly restrictive when it came to giving their kids sweets and encouraging parents to, in some cases have unlimited access to sweets. And we were pretty surprised by these findings.
So you mentioned, right, you analyzed thousands of posts, found that this sort of thing is happening all over the food industry, as you talked about, right, drink, dietary supplement industries as well. Talk about the process that you and your team had to go through to get all this data together.
Yeah, so we started by focusing on registered dietitians with at least 10,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram who were promoting themselves as RDs or dietitians and dispensing health advice. And we came across a number of them and we analyzed their posts. We found that in many cases, dietitians were promoting healthy foods, things like trail mix, fruits and vegetables, things you might, anticipate or expect a dietitian to be promoting. But there were many posts that we discovered were paid for by, like I said, the soda industry, the sugar industry. In the case of aspartame, this artificial sweetener, we discovered this campaign because the World Health Organization over the summer released 2 reports discouraging people from consuming artificial sweeteners, and in one case, labeling aspartame as a possible carcinogen. And we started to see all these posts pop up on Instagram and TikTok where dietitians were, discussing the safety of aspartame and dismissing the WHO's findings and calling the findings clickbait and being very critical of the WHO and telling people not to worry, ignore the findings. It's completely safe. And we started digging and saw that there were varying levels of disclosure on these posts. In some cases, these dietitians, in about 2/3 of the cases, had no mention at all of who was paying them to post these ads. And we, looked at the comments on these posts and saw that people were confused. They were saying, is this an ad? Who's paying for this? Who's your paid partner? Is this, were you paid to post this by the FDA, the WHO, by big aspartame? People were very confused. And we, found that pretty surprising and highlighted it in our story.
Really fascinating stuff. Anahad O'Connor, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, still to come, more fallout from Russell Brand tonight after allegations of sexual and emotional abuse, where he just got blocked from making money. That's coming up next.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.